We left my father when I was around 7 years old. After that, it was pretty much just a number of boyfriends in and out of the household. I just remember chaos. Arguments most evenings started, just as a verbal argument between she and whatever boyfriend was on the scene at the time, would escalate to throwing things. And we would either leave the room, or somehow try to get involved where we thought we were protecting my mother. And then sometimes the violence would be turned on us, thrown across the room, smacked. My mother would wake us up in the middle of the night. She would tell us we were going on midnight adventures. And that usually meant that we were going to go find the boyfriend, who was either at another woman's house or at a bar, and do something like flash his tires. That was what was kind of a fun adventure to my mother. I was the oldest in the family, so I felt like it was my job to protect my younger brother and sister, and also my mother. I remember talking to my brother and sister after school before my mother got home and say, we've got to clean the house because that's going to make everything okay. We were all instructed on a regular basis to not discuss what was happening in our house. We had had a really bad night. The next morning, we were sitting down to breakfast as if nothing had happened. My brother and sister decided they didn't want to have children. I knew that I wanted to have children. I kind of wanted to redo my childhood through them, I guess. And I had decided a long time ago that I was never going to put my children through what I went through as a child. Promised myself, made a promise to the universe that I was going to be a good mom. And I wanted to keep, have a peaceful, loving home. I met Ed about a year after my divorce. It was wonderful the way he wanted to spend time with my children. He taught them how to play baseball in the backyard. He took all of us fishing. Once we had committed to each other, he started saying, you spend too much time with your children, you spoil them. And it was confusing to me because I thought we were doing great. What just happened? He started to tell my children they called me too much, that they were too clingy, too needy. I mean, we're talking about 5, 6, and 9, 10-year-old children. And he wanted to start taking me on trips without the kids. He would get very angry with me because I wanted to talk to the kids on the phone every day. Ed seemed to want to stir up something when there wasn't anything. It was a lot like my childhood. I just got so turned around. I couldn't focus on work. I couldn't focus on my children. I was exhausted mentally, emotionally, physically. I was definitely not available to my children in the way that I had wanted to be. I failed. I let the monster in. I didn't realize how it had impacted my children those 5 years that he and I were together. It wasn't until my oldest had gone off to college and I noticed that there was a sudden distance between us, emotional distance between us, and we were very, very close. And finally, one day she was home around Christmas time. We started to talk about how difficult those 5 years were for her, how much anxiety and fear she felt during that time because she felt that she had to protect me. She said she always felt like something terrible was going to happen because I was always sad and scared and worried. She said she spent a lot of time soothing her brother and sister, telling them everything was going to be okay. A lot of women in abusive situations think that the children are not affected. It's not true. The children are terribly affected. They're traumatized. If it feels crazy and doesn't make sense and you're constantly asking yourself what you did wrong, it's not a good relationship, and your children see it. They see everything. Throughout my life, even after I went off to college and got my own apartment and everything, I periodically tried to discuss my childhood with my mother. She blames my father, her boyfriends, the situation, the fact that she was young, but never really acknowledging how it affected my brother and sister and I. I think now, seeing how what I did, what I allowed in my life has affected my own children, I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to untangle it. I wanted to repair our relationship. My mother just wanted to sweep it under the rug. I didn't talk about what happened to me until I met with Patricia years later. I felt shame, fear, and sadness all the time. I was just in my own little world trying to fix everything. And since I have started coming out, I have clients and friends and people tell me all the time about their experience with domestic abuse. Being able to open up to my children and discuss the past and the abuse that happened in our household has been really great because they all have stepped up. They all want to prevent this from happening in their futures and the futures of their friends. My oldest, Sophia, is working with Finding Our Voices, trying to bring the message to college campuses. And my daughter Lily is also working with Patricia and finding our voices to bring the message to high schools. And I'm really proud of them. How do I feel about my kids? I have the best kids in the world. When I say they're remarkable, they say, well, you're remarkable. And it's wonderful because we all just talk to each other and we're honest and open and untangling that pain.